welcome over here to my kitchen. Today I'm going to be showing you realistic one-pot meals using simple ingredients that you probably already have at home. But anyways, I absolutely love making one-pot meals for my family just because they come together in no time at all, and then they're also super duper low mess. So I hope you enjoy this video. Let's head over to my kitchen and start cooking. To get us kicked off today, we're making this Italian sausage tortellini. So to begin, in my large pot, I have a tablespoon of hot olive oil in there. And now I'm adding 1 pound of Italian sausage. You'd see me removing the casings on the outside of the sausage at this point. You're just going to want to break up the sausage and cook it completely through. I'm using my meat masher to break it up. I absolutely love this little meat masher. I have it in my Amazon store if you want to get yourself one. But while my sausage is cooking, we're going to move over to my veggies, and I'm going to shred about 4 medium-sized carrots and chop a half of a white onion. Now that my sausage is cooked, you're going to want to remove any of the excess grease in your pan. A few of you might have seen me do this trick in some of my previous videos, but I love wiggling a paper towel around in my pot until it removes all of the grease. I find it works best like that. And then after I was through with that, I removed the sausage to a separate plate. Now into the same pot, I'm adding a tablespoon of olive oil. Once it's hot, you're going to add your diced onion along with the shredded carrots. You're going to stir this all together and let it soften. It should take you about 3 to 4 minutes. After those 3 to 4 minutes, add a tablespoon of minced garlic and let it get fragrant. It shouldn't take you very long at all, just about 20 seconds. Now for the rest of the ingredients I'm adding in, it's just a jar of marinara sauce, about 24 ounces. You could use any type of marinara sauce you like. And then 1 cup of beef broth, a little dash of salt and pepper, and then a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. Add back in your cooked sausage along with 8 ounces of frozen cheese tortellini. You'll place the lid on top and let this simmer covered for about 5 minutes. After those 5 minutes, remove the lid and then add in your 3 cups of chopped fresh spinach. The spinach is optional. You don't have to add it if you don't care for spinach. Give this a good stir and let this continue to simmer for an additional 5 minutes or until the spinach is wilted and the tortellini's cooked. Here's the finished product. Of course, I sprinkled plenty of Parmesan on top of mine. This is seriously so good. If you're looking for a great tortellini recipe, this one's the one for you. Now we're making this one-pot Mexican and beef rice dish. Of course, to begin, in my pot, I'm adding 1 pound of ground beef along with 1 diced up white onion and a couple tablespoons of minced garlic. You're going to break up the ground beef and cook it completely through. Once it is cooked, just remove any of the excess grease and then add in your 1 diced up bell pepper. I chose to use a yellow bell pepper, but you could use any color. 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, 2 tablespoons of taco seasoning. You could make your own taco seasoning or just use a container like I did. A dash of salt and pepper, 3/4 cup of basmati rice. I do like using basmati rice for this recipe. I think it turns out best. And then my rice was uncooked, just to let you know. A cup and a half of beef broth, 3/4 cup of your favorite salsa, 1 can of drained and rinsed black beans, and then lastly, you'll add in 1 cup of frozen corn. You could also just add in 1 can of drained corn if that's what you have on hand. Anyways, just mix this all together, put the lid on top, and let this simmer for about 15 minutes. You do want to stir it very frequently while it's simmering, or else the rice will stick to the bottom of your pot. Now that my rice is tender, I'm giving it 1 good stir before I add in the rest of the ingredients. So now I'm adding in a cup and a half of shredded sharp cheddar cheese, or you could use whatever cheese you like pepper jack, whatever your favorite is. And then the juice from a half of a lime. Give this 1 last stir and then it's ready to serve. You know, you could really top this with anything of your dreams, but I chose to top it with a dollop of sour cream, iceberg lettuce, tortilla strips, and more lime. This is seriously so good. My family loves it. Now we're making probably one of the world's easiest pasta dishes ever. So to get this one started, I'm going to cut my one smaller sized onion into smaller pieces. Over to my pot on the stove, I'm adding 4.5 cups of chicken broth in. Next, you'll add 12 ounces of fettuccine, the chopped up onion, 14 ounces of fire roasted tomatoes, a half a cup of freshly chopped basil. If you don't already know this yet, I love keeping a little basil plant in my kitchen, so whenever I need fresh basil for a recipe, I could just pull it from my plant. I added in the juice from 1 lemon, a tablespoon of olive oil, a tablespoon of Italian seasoning, and just salt and pepper to taste. I let this boil on my stove uncovered for about 10 minutes or until my noodles were cooked, and it looked something like this. So at this point, I turned my heat off, and now it's time to add in your 1 cup of Parmesan cheese. I added the Parmesan cheese in, gave it a really good stir, let it melt, and then it's ready to serve. Here's my bowl of food. I sprinkled the top with more Parmesan cheese and basil. This meatless meal is so delicious and it is unbelievably easy to throw together. Now we're making this Southwest chicken and vegetables. To kick this one off, I have 1 red bell pepper. I'm slicing it into smaller pieces along with 2 zucchinis. Now that we're finished with the vegetables, we're going to get started on cutting our chicken. So I just have 1 chicken breast. I'm cutting it into thinner strips just like this. You could really use more chicken or less chicken for this recipe, kind of whatever fits your needs. And then I also want to mention for all these recipes today, they are so easy to double or half. So now that we're finished cutting up our chicken, I'm going to move over to my pan. I have a tablespoon of hot olive oil in it. I'm adding my chicken. Next, I'll add 1 tablespoon of taco seasoning and cook this chicken up. Now that our chicken's reached the internal temperature of 165 degrees, I removed it to a separate plate and I'm setting the plate to the side. Into the same pan that we cooked the chicken in, I added an additional tablespoon of olive oil, along with the bell pepper, 1 cup of frozen corn, a tablespoon of minced garlic, and then 1 tablespoon of taco seasoning. You're going to cook this all together until the pepper starts to soften. It'll take about 3 to 5 minutes. We can't forget about the zucchini, so now that the bell pepper is starting to get soft, I added in our zucchini along with the juice from half of a lime. You're going to let the zucchini get soft. It should take an additional 3 minutes or so. After it is soft, add back in the cooked chicken, let the chicken warm through, and then it's ready to serve. Here's my plate of food. I sprinkled the top with Mexican cotija cheese, fresh lime, cherry tomatoes. This is such a great flavorful meal and I love how it is lower carb. Now we're making my daughter's favorite. This ground beef stroganoff is kind of a shortcut from normal stroganoff. So I have 8 ounces of mushrooms. I'm just slicing them into smaller pieces. Over to my large pot, I have a tablespoon of hot olive oil in there. I'm adding my sliced mushrooms and I'm going to cook them on a higher heat until they soften and they look like a nice golden color. Once they look something like this, you're going to remove them to a separate plate. In the same pot we cooked the mushrooms in, go ahead and add your 1 pound of ground beef at this point. You're going to cook it until it's only about 80% of the way cooked. At that point, remove any of the excess grease and then add a half of a diced onion with 2 tablespoons of minced garlic. Cook this for an additional 3 minutes until your ground beef is cooked. So now that my ground beef is cooked and my onions are soft, I just added in 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, a dash of salt and pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and paprika. Stir this all together until the flour is no longer white. Now it's time to add in our 1/4 cup of chicken broth. You're going to whisk it all together with the rest of the ingredients until it has evaporated. Once it has evaporated, you're going to add in your 4 cups of beef broth, give it a good stir, and then add back in the mushrooms that we cooked up earlier, along with 8 ounces of egg noodles. You're going to let this simmer on your stove covered for about 5 minutes. I did stir it pretty frequently while I was letting it simmer, but after those 5 minutes, let it simmer for an additional 5 minutes uncovered, and then it should look something like this. Now we do want our beef stroganoff nice and creamy, so now I'm adding in my 3/4 cup of sour cream. I do have the heat off at this point to ensure that the sour cream doesn't curdle, but after the sour cream melted down and combined well, it was ready to serve. So here's my plate of food. I just served it with steamed peas on the side, and I sprinkled plenty of black pepper on top of my beef stroganoff. This was so good. Like I said previously, my daughter absolutely devoured this. That is it for today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe down below the video so you don't miss Sunday's video, and I'll see you there. Bye for now.